Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. We're just going to wait another minute or two for a few more attendees to join.
Thanks. Brenda, would you mind sharing, if you have time, the presentation just to see what comes up for you, the TUSLA one? We're first up, aren't we?
Yeah, we can do that for you. That's no problem. We've started the webinars now, so we'll just wait another moment or two for the participants to join. I think we have a number of attendees here. So I think we'll kick off. It's just gone 2 minutes past 10. So a very warm welcome to everyone and thank you for attending this morning's briefing event. To begin with, Grania, I don't know if you'd like to say a few words or if you'd like me to continue.
Thank you, Brenda. I'll just say good morning to everyone. I'm Grania Walsh, the Assistant Director at the Irish Research Council. I'll let Brenda and Anna, who are the Programme Manager and Research Support Officer on New Foundations Programme, take over, but I just want to welcome everyone, all participants, and of course our funding partners who are presenting today on the strands they're funding. We're delighted that we were able to have so many of them be involved in New Foundations for 2022. Thank you, Brenda.
Great, thanks, Grania. So welcome everybody, and as Grania said, I'm Brenda Blake. I'm a Programme Manager in the Irish Research Council, with the New Foundations scheme being one of the programmes under my portfolio. So in terms of running order this morning, I'll make some initial comments about the IRC and the New Foundations scheme in particular. I'll then hand over to colleagues according to the agenda on your screen. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can please write them into the Q&A box, which I'll moderate throughout the session. So next slide, please, Anna. Thank you. So at the Irish Research Council, we often use this A to Z shorthand to illustrate one of our key features, that we fund excellent research in all disciplines from archaeology to zoology. Next slide, please. As you may be aware, the Irish Research Council's strategic plan was launched in 2020 and it's available for download from our website. One of the many aims of this plan was to build on our achievements to date. One such achievement to date has been the Irish Research Council's partnership with over 20 government departments and agencies. Extending such partnerships with government departments and agencies is a key action under the strategic plan. On the next slide, there's a lot of information, and it's mainly intended to illustrate the range of funding programs that the Irish Research Council operates. We fund individuals at all career stages. We offer several programs that have partnership as a defining feature. And we offer schemes where researchers partner with enterprise and employers, and other programs such as New Foundations and Coalesce partner with government and with civic society. New Foundations is a key driver in progressing our strategic priorities by enabling awardees to pursue research, networking, or dissemination activities within and across the diversity of disciplines. The scheme provides support for research actions, the development of networks and consortia, conference and workshop development, and capacity building for interdisciplinary collaboration. So last year, the Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, Simon Harris TD, welcomes funding for 76 New Foundation awards. These awards included enhancing civic society projects with civic society partners. This year, the New Foundations programme includes the Open Strand again, Enhancing Civic Society, together with 7 strands run in partnership with government departments and agencies, which are listed here on the slide. We're delighted to run strands 1A, 4, 8 and 10 again, and to be working with new strategic funding partners, the Department of Foreign Affairs Irish Aid with the Department of Education, the Department of Rural and Community Development, Community Foundation for Ireland and TUSLA Child and Family Agency. Before I hand over to the first funding partner, I would just like to draw your attention to the eligibility criteria. So some of the key eligibility criteria are listed on this slide. Please note that eligible HEIs and RPOs are listed on the IRC website, and these are in the Republic of Ireland only. Applicants to all strands must include the name of a partner as part of the application. For Strand 8, partners should be either north-south on the island of Ireland, east-west between Ireland and Britain, or through relevant international collaboration. As you will be aware, the current call is open with the applicant deadline next Tuesday, the 21st of June, and the Research Office endorsement is the 5th of July at 4 p.m. So to begin with this morning, we have Marion Bratman and Angela Feeney from TUSLA Child and Family Agency, and they will do a short presentation on their Strand 14, which is called Utilising Evidence for Child Protection and Welfare Policy Needs, New Foundations Awards. So I'll hand over to Marion and Angela next.
Many thanks, Brenda, and delighted to be here to introduce the Strand 14, Utilising Evidence for Child Protection Welfare Policy Needs with the New Foundations Award. It's the first time that TUSLA hasn't been involved in this award, so we're really delighted and excited about our participation in the Strand. So moving on to the next slide. I suppose the first port of call, myself and Angela will share this presentation, but just wanted to give a bit of background to TUSLA Child and Family Agency. You might be aware that the agency was set up in 2014, so it is still quite a young agency in terms of its development, and I think the kind of topics that we have for the call sort of reflect that stage of the agency's development, in that we're looking for very particular areas of work to support our policy and practice in what is quite a wide-ranging service delivery landscape in TUSLA. As you can see there in point 2, we have a number of core services that we deliver in child protection, welfare, alternative care, adoption, family support in early years, education support services, and domestic, sexual and gender-based violence services. So I think the call is trying to reflect at least some of that service delivery approach within the research call. We're also undergoing quite a significant organisational restructure at the moment, which is focusing on improvement across practice, culture and structure. So the topics that we have are trying to reflect where we are in our development across that structural reform, and making sure that our approaches for the future are evidence informed. Just to note that there is a specific statutory requirement within the Child and Family Agency Act to commission research on our functions, particularly our service delivery functions as noted above, and we have a National Research Office which myself and Angela sit in, and we will be able to coordinate and support the researchers who applied for this award. But equally, it's important to note that we have set up kind of steering and governance arrangements across the service delivery landscape to support researchers in understanding kind of the practice questions emerging in the various topics that we have identified. Thank you. You can move on to the next slide, and Angela's going to go through the 4 topics. Thank you.
Thanks, Marion. And just to check, Brenda, you can see the slide okay?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, great, thank you. So as Marion said, my name is Angela Feeney. I work as a National Research Officer in TUSLA's National Research Office, and both Marion and I have been involved, I suppose, in the scoping and development of these projects in conjunction with our colleagues across different directorates within TUSLA Child and Family Agency. So to get started, just an introduction to the project. So you'll have seen in the call document that we have 4 projects, and each project will be awarded 17,500. So each project addresses a particular need or question that we have as an agency, and the projects relate to our current business plans, our practice improvement plans and our systems. We're keen to utilise the project outputs for our learning and potentially for our decision making in terms of progressing our work forward. And each project will have a TUSLA lead assigned to support and oversee the project from beginning to end. So the first project, and the lengthy title we have on this, but the first project title is the exploration of international best practice regarding a legal framework and service delivery model for the treatment of children and young adults with challenging emotional and behavioural difficulties, including emerging psychiatric and personality disorders, who require detention for their own safety or the safety of others. And I suppose this project responds directly to recommendation 22 of the recently launched research report, Ripe for Reform, authored by Maria Corbett and Carol Coulter. And a lot of the issues are certainly are being posed for TUSLA Child and Family Agency, as well as within the legal settings as published by Corbett and Coulter. So this project relates to TUSLA's work with complex cases, but it also takes in the interagency response that's required. For example, our work with the HSE, mental health services and legal professionals in trying to provide the right services at the right time for this cohort of young people. And it cuts across within TUSLA our own legal services and alternative care services. And we're interested in learning about what practices or systems exist in other jurisdictions in relation to what works. And so this is a 9-month project. We require for this project a systematic review of international evidence. The jurisdictions can be agreed at another point. And the review will focus on legislation, systems, policy and practice in the areas of child protection, welfare and alternative care. And working with the TUSLA lead, the researchers will provide presentations at the start, midpoint and end of the project. And as per the call document, a 15 to 20 page report would be required. And we can take questions in relation to project 1 at the end. So moving swiftly on, project 2 is, the title here is Investigating What the Front Door of Child Protection and Welfare Services Look Like Internationally and Collating Best Practice from Policy and Practice Experts in several agreed jurisdictions. And again, this project responds to the requirement for evidence to inform how the agency can improve its front door system and process. And what we mean by front door is, this is our first point of contact with families that families have with us. And currently it's most often with social work who assess and then refer to other parts of the agencies. However, as Marion said, TUSLA is undergoing an organisational restructure, and there's a specific focus on how we can improve the integration of all of our services so that children and families get the right service at the right time. So that's the rationale for exploring this particular topic. And it also relates, obviously integrated services relates to our corporate and business plans as well. And again, this is a 9-month project. We require a systematic international evidence review and perhaps some consultations with international experts. And the focus is on integrated systems, policy and practice in child protection, welfare, and to include family support and educational welfare services. And again, working with the TUSLA lead, who would be located in our Services and Integration Directorate, we would require presentations at the start, midpoint and end, and including the output 15 to 20 page report. And again, we can take questions at the end. So project 3, in short, the title is Expertise and Evidence in Testing Outcome Measurement Tools in Child and Family Services. And this project very specifically relates to Action 3.5 of the TUSLA Business Plan 2022, which states that TUSLA will enhance TUSLA local, regional and national performance systems using meaningful measures that promote improved outcomes for the people we serve. And the good news is that we have, we're currently finalising a draft suite of outcome measures which have been defined for our early intervention and prevention services, including family support services within PPFS, which is Prevention, Partnership and Family Support within TUSLA, and the ABCs, the Area-Based Childhood Services. And all these services sit again within our Services and Integration Directorate. The measures will soon be ready for testing, and we are seeking someone to work with PPFS and the ABCs on the testing of these measures. So it'll be a 9-month project, and the approach we are seeking is expertise and advice on the implementation of the measures and extraction of learning from this testing of the measures. The focus is on early intervention family support services. And our outputs, again, presentations at the beginning, mid and end, and written report to provide us with the learning that hopefully we can utilise in terms of going forward with future implementation, and also to inform our wider development and implementation of outcomes measures for the agency as a whole. And the final project, and I hope I haven't run over time, title is Service User Experience, Methodologies, Tools, Requirements and Feedback Mechanisms. And this project is required to inform the development of an agency-wide service user experience collection tool that enables the agency to utilise feedback for service improvement. So at present, we have a feedback system in place. However, we require a more advanced framework and a package of tools that can be adapted to all parts of our services that we provide. There can be some emphasis again on child protection, welfare, children in care, children in community foster care as service users as well. But we just need to be clear that we are looking for something that may be adaptable for our whole agency. And again, it's a systematic review that we're looking for. It's a 9-month project, and with the focus on collecting and using feedback for service improvement and improving our quality systems. And we would require presentations again at the beginning, midpoint and end, and also an output of a 15 to 20 page report. And the researcher in this scenario would be working very closely with a TUSLA lead within our Quality and Regulation Directorate. So I'll hand you back to Marion now.
Thank you, Angela. So just to finalise our presentation, just to note, and this is included in the call, that we're very keen that we include both the research office, but also the personnel within the agency who have expertise in the areas of policy and practice and service improvement that we're looking at to work with the researchers. So we would make sure, or we'd like to make sure that it's a collaborative effort between the researchers, the research office and the experts in the agency. As I said at the beginning, there are existing governance structures to situate these projects, and where there aren't governance structures, they will be developed in order for the researchers to have access to the appropriate governance, expertise and oversight for the projects. I mean, we really want to make sure that the material, the output of the 4 projects is provided to the relevant audience. We are a practitioner-based agency, and we want to make sure that the material developed is clearly resonating with the practitioners, policymakers and managers, to make sure that we can implement kind of the learning into our systems. And we're very keen to have good engagement with researchers around their dissemination plans, and looking at what might be a good range of dissemination outputs that appeal to our type of audience. Again, quite busy practitioners in the main who are very keen to learn from research, but require you know, really good ways of getting that information into their systems. So I suppose in conclusion, like, you know, we're very clear that we would work with the researchers who are interested in this call, and we think the relevant subject experts within the agency to support the work as well. So I think that concludes our presentation. Just to say thank you for your interest and engagement. We're here to try and answer any questions. If we don't have time this morning, I know it's a very busy schedule, we're very happy to take them offline, and we've included our email addresses for myself and Angela. If there's anything that we can follow up with after today, we're more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Marion and Angela, for that presentation. We don't have any questions at the moment, but we can circle back if a query comes in on your Strand later during the session. So I think we will move on next to Shared Island. So the presentation will be by Owen Duffy and Brona Alwyn. So I'll hand over to you, Owen and Brona, we can share your slides for you if you wish. Just let us know.
Thanks, Brenda. If you could share the slides, that would be great.
Yeah, great. Anna's going to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Owen Duffy. I'm Principal Officer in the Shared Island Unit in the Department of Taoiseach, and I'm joined by my colleague, Brona Alwill, also with the Shared Island Unit. So this is the second year that we've run a Shared Island Strand in cooperation with the Research Council as part of the New Foundations programme. So I just want to quickly give people a sense of the Shared Island Initiative by government in overall terms, and then run through the main points of the call under Strand 8 and our particular areas of interest and how we'd like to take that forward with successful applicants. So move on to the next slide, please, Brenda. Anna, thanks. So conscious that people may not be familiar with this at all, to give just a quick run through on what the Shared Island Initiative is. So it was a commitment in the programme for government in 2020, which is to work with all communities and political traditions on the island of Ireland to build consensus around a shared future underpinned by the Good Friday Agreement. So really it's about looking to the future of the island on an open basis in terms of potential constitutional futures, and looking in practical ways at how cooperation and societal connections can be deepened for mutual benefit to build a shared future on the island. So obviously there's a very political context to the work, and is very much underpinned in terms of what we do in the unit, in the department and across government by the principles of the Good Friday Agreement. So this is a whole of government initiative. We're a small unit in the Taoiseach's department of 6 people, and the heavy lifting, the delivery, the development of new programmes is taken forward by our colleagues in departments right across government and in agencies. And they're all working very closely and on a partnership basis with counterparts in the Northern Ireland Executive at Stormont and with the UK government. And the focus from government is to work to develop more strategic cooperation on the island on key issues such as dealing with the aftermath of Brexit, recovery from the pandemic, and climate and biodiversity issues, where there's been a particularly strong focus over the last year. As well as working with Belfast and London, a strong focus both on working with local authorities from the Irish government side and supporting local authorities to work together on a cross-border basis. And again, that's been a particular area of focus over the last year. In resourcing terms, a significant resource commitment from government to support the implementation of these objectives. There's a €500 million capital fund created in Budget 21, which is ring-fenced for North-South and all-island investment. 50 million of that has been programmed so far, and there'll be a similar amount programmed in later this month, and then through the rest of this year and out to 25. So that funding has been very actively programmed by the government at the moment. So move on, please, Anna. So there's really 3 areas of work to the initiative. The first is badge building a shared island. So this really is about new investment and cooperation on an all-island basis, both delivering long-standing commitments like the Ulster Canal, and also developing a new set of collaborative investments which are matched to, as I say, strategic issues that the island as a whole faces in the years ahead. So that's a big part of the work, and that's where the major part of the resourcing comes in. Second area, which is also very active, is around civic dialogue and engagement on an all-island basis. So there's been a shared island dialogue series over the last 18 months, which has brought together almost 2,000 civic leaders on a cross-border, cross-community basis to look at practical issues around how cooperation and societal connections can be enhanced in the years ahead. And then the third major area is a programme of research, and we're working with the Irish Research Council on this programme, also with the National Economic and Social Council and the ESRI. And the focus of the research is on promoting all-island approaches to strategic challenges and on strengthening links across society on the island. So very much connected to what the policy development objectives are. So I'll move on. That's hopefully gives people a sense of the initiative in overall terms. And so this research programme under Strand 8 of the New Foundations call is for up to 10 awards of 20,000 for projects of 6 to 9 months duration. We expect most of them will be in the 9-month period given the experience last year. And the call is for research and related networking that can contribute to those objectives and the development and implementation of those that I've just set out as part of the government's Shared Island Initiative, and also to support the development of further research proposals that can go deeper with more time and more resourcing for future research calls, both that would be run by the government, for instance, the North South Research Programme, and that are run more broadly by the Research Council and other funders. So it's also about developing a pipeline of work. Thanks. So in terms of key aspects of the call from our point of view, the first one is a partnership approach. So all applicants need to reference a research partnership either on a north-south basis on the island or east-west from Ireland and Britain, or with an international collaboration that relates to the Good Friday Agreement. As with the previous strand, dissemination is a really important part of this from our point of view, to get people to engage with the research analysis and conclusions. In terms of audience, I think there's two really distinct audiences for this work, and that's why dissemination is so important. The first is really departments and agencies who are involved directly in delivering the new All Island Cooperation and Investment Programme we're undertaking. But the second is much broader. I describe it as public and indeed political stakeholders who are involved or who have an interest in All Island Cooperation, North-South relationships and the Good Friday Agreement, that the research we envisage providing an evidence base and an analysis to support constructive, inclusive, informed discussions about the future of the island across all sectors and issues. So that's quite a different audience. There's an obvious connection between them, and the departments and agencies are working closely, obviously, with government. But that's why dissemination we see as such an important part of this programme. In terms of disciplines then, like the initiative itself, this is very broad, whole of government, and therefore we're looking for proposals from all relevant fields and interdisciplinary collaborations within that. Slide please, Anna. Thank you. So on the outputs, so it's a relatively short research period. So the output is anticipated to be a publishable report of 15 to 20 pages. Which again would provide a basis for dissemination work as well. I'm interested, given the nature of the research, for particular focus and conclusions on public policy and how the Shared Island Initiative is implemented and further developed, and then also on the potential for further research. Thank you. Just to mention as well, we would there's a requirement in the call for a midpoint report as well, which we found very useful in hearing from researchers as they're undertaking the work. So there's two broad themes for this call, and I'll just run through the different areas now. The first one is on political policy and economic cooperation. The background for this, or the basis for this, really is the new investment objectives that were defined by the government in the revised National Development Plan last October, and how they can be taken forward in key areas. So you can see they're quite wide-ranging, covering healthcare, education, higher and further education, heritage arts, culture and sports, and renewable energy. So these are some of the areas where the government sees particular potential and need for greater all-island investment and cooperation, has set an investment objective, and has provided, in principle, significant capital funding to take forward those investment in those areas. So research that can inform and analyse the opportunities and indeed the challenges that are there in those areas is of keen interest in departments, and, as I say, relevant then for public discourse as well. So that's theme one, very much focused on the National Development Plan. And then I'll move on to the next slide, please. Again, more areas that are covered under the NDP listed there. Theme two then is quite different. It's on civic, social and cultural connections and understanding on the island. And the basis for these themes, these areas, has been the Shared Island Dialogue series that has been run over the last 18 months, where we've heard from civil society across the island, striving to hear from underrepresented voices of women, young people, ethnic and migrant communities, as well as more traditional and established voices on all aspects of the future of the island. And these are some of the themes that have come through particularly strongly in terms of where people see, again, need and potential for work, and a greater focus in terms of how we share the island. So we want to explore these further now with research through this call. So again, a very, very broad area of work and themes covering cultural diversity, civic, cultural and sporting links, addressing inequality and discrimination on an all-island basis across all aspects of equality. Looking also at statistical and data systems on an all-island basis where there are significant problems, as I think any researcher will be well aware. Enhancing representation of underrepresented cohorts in our community, and then also addressing barriers to mutual trust between different communities and political traditions on the island, including through education, arts, culture and civil society cooperation. Move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So they're the thematic areas, very wide ranging, but I suppose they all have a direct connection back to the overall objectives from government on Shared Island, and then to the practical work that departments and agencies are taking forward at the moment, and hearing and engaging with civil society. Just some reference points for preparing applications. These are all set out in the call document, so I won't dwell on them, but there's the major statements from government and from policy documents as well. And then there's some more on the next slide. Thank you. In terms of reference points, so we would ask researchers to really refer to these so that their proposals are as oriented around the areas of work for government as they can be. And next slide, please. Thank you. So the final slide from me is the deadline is the 21st of June, and projects we anticipate starting on the 1st of November. So thank you, and happy to take any questions, and Brona as well. Thanks.
Thanks so much for that, Owen. That was excellent. So we did have one question come in while you were talking. So it is about the research output section, if this can include outputs of partners.
So yeah, I think the output is envisaged as a joint output, that the partner will be a very integrated part of the project. So they wouldn't be distinct outputs. I think we would see them as being integrated. Yeah,
and I think that applies to all strands as well, that they would be contributory or joint project outputs as opposed to separated, particularly if it's in a report, it would be incorporated in together. Okay, that's it. There's no more questions, but they may come in later, so we will leave that for now and we can circle back to you. Thanks so much, Owen and Aoife and Brona from Shared Island Initiative. So we're running pretty well according to schedule, so I think we'll go ahead with the next presenter, Margaret Tumulty. She's the head of policing strategy and performance from the Police and Authority, and she'll present on Strand 10, which is called Police Community Relations New Foundations Award.
Good morning. Delighted to be here today just to tell you a bit about, I suppose, why we're involved and what it is we're hoping to get from the new foundations in the next round. So just a brief few words, I suppose, in terms of who we are. So our key job is to oversee policing performance. Our mission is to hold the guards to account fairly and transparently in the interests of all, and in particular the most vulnerable. And I think this is a key thing that will emerge when I talk about what it is we're hoping to achieve. Our vision then is, I suppose, when we're holding the guards to account, is around the degree to which the service is ethical, effective, human rights based, that it enjoys and merits the confidence of the people it serves in all its diversity, in terms of the diverse population. Listening, in terms of how we do our job, I suppose listening is one of our organisational values, but it's also really part of how we go about doing our oversight work. We obviously listen to the guards, we engage with guard management, we engage with the Garda Commissioner, but we also engage with frontline Gardaí, and we also then engage with the community. And by that, I suppose it's work we had started earlier on in our first few years of existence, but really COVID was a catalyst for that. And insofar as we would have done reports during the whole period of COVID on the policing of the new powers that the guards had and the degree to which they were being exercised, I suppose, legally, proportionately, fairly, it brought us the opportunity to really ramp up that work that we were doing. So over the course of the 2 years, we would have engaged with over 50 organisations and communities, and very much conversations, and no claims being made to methodological rigour or science, but I suppose listening to the particular experience, which was none less the valid. And it is that lived experience of policing. And then we take that, I suppose, and we bring back that lived policing. It informs the oversight, it informs our engagement with the guards. We're able to say, well, okay, you're saying this, but we're hearing this from certain communities. And we found that really, really useful. I suppose, there's one thing to take the information from the community and to bring that back to the guards. What we've also tried to do a little bit of last year in particular was the idea as well of facilitating that dialogue directly between the community and the guards. And we had an event last year in Cork, which was a tentative step in that direction of just facilitating that conversation, that dialogue. So in terms of new foundations, I suppose we see this as an opportunity to maybe find new ways of doing that, and new ways by which the community might get to articulate its voice as to how it feels about policing, how effective it feels policing is, but also the seldom heard. And that's been a key part for us as well. Very often, I suppose, national surveys don't capture those voices in sufficient numbers. And so that's why we're looking through new foundations at maybe there being more imaginative, creative ways by which that voice could be captured. And also that communities could talk to themselves, but also talk to the guards as to their experience of policing. So I suppose what we're hoping to achieve is to fund a project that would capture the needs or experience of communities, and contribute then in doing so as well to enhancing police-community relations. In terms of a theme, we're happy for the project to focus on any theme that's relevant to police and community relations. So anything that is directed towards strengthening the community voice and or facilitating meaningful two-way communication. In any area, if you were to go to the Policing Authority Statement of Strategy for 22 to 24, lots of key themes in there. There's ones around children and young people, which I think the authority very much sees as a strategically important group in the population that we need to think about in terms of how as a group it's experiencing policing, how it thinks about policing, how policing is done with or to. Also areas of hate crime, how policing of diverse communities happen, and also areas such as mental health. And they're just 2 or 3 of the themes that are in the strategy, but I would encourage anyone interested in this strand to have a look through our strategy and really get a sense and a feel for the direction, I suppose, the work is taking. In terms of project requirements, basically looking to see, does this project engage with, does it hear local communities, and particularly those that are seldom heard? Does it show strong evidence of between academic institutions, or really the involvement of local communities or of the police? We're looking to see, might there be some innovative practice, especially creative or evidence-based practices? And also then, is it something that could be replicated? Is it a model of engagement or a model of listening that might be capable of being replicated beyond the lifetime of this project in that whole area of developing police-community relations? And then I suppose, does it address an area of strategic interest to the organisation? So as I said, have a look through our strategy document. So that's really, we haven't been prescriptive beyond that. I think we're very open to innovation and creativity. Innovation could be in terms of the partnerships that are chosen, the people that are linking in, the groups that are linking in, or indeed the actual methodologies being used. That's probably too short now, but I might have brought you back a few minutes somewhere. But happy to answer any questions.
No, that's great. That's fantastic. Thank you, Margaret. I'm just going to check. I don't think any questions have come in while you were speaking. No. But nevertheless, we can circle back to you, or you can always email newfoundations@research.ie for anyone who has any queries after the webinar as well. So in terms of timing, I think we're a little bit ahead of time, so we might take a short break and come back with Tina Roach from the Sunflower Charitable Foundation through the Community Foundation for Ireland. So that should start at about 10:50. So if we take about 5 to 10 minutes and come back for that, in case anyone is logging in, particularly for that, we don't really want to be too far ahead of schedule either. Hi, Tina. We might just give it one more minute.
Okay, Brenda.
You don't have any slides, correct?
Nope.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, well, we're almost at the time, so whenever you want to start, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Roach, and before I start, can I just thank Brenda and Anna for putting on this morning session so that we can all learn so much. I am Chief Executive, or was Chief Executive of the Community Foundation for Ireland. I'm now a Special Advisor. I'm also the Founder CEO of the Community Foundation. And for those of you who don't know us, we're a philanthropic institution. We were established about 22 years ago. And I remember in the beginning, we gave out about 80,000 euros, and now we're donating distributing about 20 million. We work with families and individuals and businesses, and we work with families to help them with their philanthropy. Through our work, one of the donor advised funds we have is called the Sunflower Charitable Foundation, and an excellent foundation, and we administer their funds. And the Sunflower Foundation and ourselves are extremely concerned by the state of climate change and how close we are to a tipping point. And also the second crisis that's happening and interrelated, which is biodiversity loss. Now, we all know what an existential crisis both of these are for us. And we have to find new and innovative ways of tackling these crises. And it is not just regional, local, national, international, it's a global issues. So that research is so important, and that we apply what we have, not just locally, but right across the globe, to see what it is that we can do to really tackle this. Under the Strand, you'll see that we have up to 10 awards will be made under the Strand of about 20,000 each. And the awards will be 12 months in duration. We are hoping that the awards will support both research and networking and collaboration on themes related to climate change and biodiversity. And that we are hoping that the kind of research, networking and collaboration that we can hope to get in will lead to the urgent transformation in how our society works and how we live and how we look after nature. We continue to see the destruction of biodiversity at a rate that's unprecedented before. There's no slowing, it's just an increase. And therefore, the loss of biodiversity is something that we have to turn our minds to immediately. And it's how do we bring people with us as well? How do we get people to accept that massive change is going to be needed? And transformation is the only way out of this. And yet, if you look at our policies, and the government has brought in really good policies around climate change, and there are some of your key resources. The Climate Action Plan is very good, and the new carbon budgets that will be out soon are going to challenge all of us. And it's going to cause division in society, and it's how do we look to heal those rifts very quickly? What kind of behaviour do we need to encourage, and what kind of behaviour can we point to make us all work together on these losses? We have the Biodiversity Action Plan, but at the same time that we have the Biodiversity Action Plan, we also have the need to build housing, and we're building housing on greenfield sites, which once again accelerates the loss of biodiversity. So we have conundrums there that hopefully research and thinking might help us with. Finally, we have the European Green Deal, which will also be a very good resource for you to look at. The central pillar of everything that's done is the Climate Action Plan. And one of the areas that is probably the most contentious, but if we have to look at this differently. Our government policies have driven how farming is done in Ireland, and one of our state agencies, Teagasc, is the agency that teaches or encourages farmers to farm in a certain way. So it is policy and training that has led us to the situation we're in now. And we have to change drastically how we farm. And without, again, driving rifts within Irish society, it's all of us together that need to combat what's happening in climate and what's happening in biodiversity. So again, the transformation of both society, agricultural practices for a sustainable and clean future is desperately needed. And hopefully your research, networking and collaboration can come up with purposes and scale that will help us. As with all Irish Research Council programmes, the Strand are open to researchers of any discipline. So I do encourage people who are in climate change and biodiversity, but also who are in behavioural changes, to really have a look at this Strand. The awards will form a community of projects, because what we would like to do, again, is not just cross-pollinate within the projects, but through the project. So the idea is that we will be, any kind of networking collaboration will be encouraged and hopefully facilitated. And the areas for research, they must contribute new knowledge, perspectives to inform progress towards action. We are hoping that people have now, it's in people's DNA that we know there's a crisis, which for a long time, as you know, it was debated. There's no debate. The crisis in biodiversity is quite shocking. 50% loss in less than 20 years. It's really quite shocking. And what we need to be able to do is see, well, what can we do? How do we manage this? We are quite a clever species ourselves, and hopefully many of you out there will be thinking about this and have an answer to some of our really extraordinary problems. So the areas that we were looking at, and it's not just these, but renewable energy. While renewable energy would be great, the time it's going to take, we need to be able to concentrate. How do we get this done as quickly as possible if we're going to have to 80% renewable energy by 2030? Green fuel. Can we use agricultural crops? Is this the best way to go? Protecting, enhancing biodiversity, definitely. And carbon capture and storage, which is really necessary. Sustainable, climate-friendly agriculture, net zero homes, just transition for vulnerable groups. And I think that's key. How do we bring in an extraordinary transformation and still have a just transition? We've seen it, the arguments around turf, and that's just a tiny, tiny little change. So again, I'm hoping that some of you will have insights into this. We would really like to have a balance, a portfolio of awards. We'd like to, as well, a dissemination, please, should form part of the proposal, because as I say, it's not just at one level. This affects all of us and at all levels. So we need to disseminate, so publication of the report is very important to us. Networking and collaboration events, contributions at conferences, and any other opportunity, apart from publications, but any other opportunity to speak at events. So what we would like is a high-level report, and at the conclusion of the research and related networking and collaboration work. It must be suitable for publication because we want people to see it and include perspectives on the relevance of this research for public policy. Because the scale of it. It'll take public policy, it'll take all of us, but it'll take public policy to allow the transformation. So again, midway, we hope that you'll make a presentation to us so that it's just something very short so that we know what's happening. And then you've got a final scientific and financial report to be submitted to the IRC at the end of the project. That's what we're hoping for. I know that it's a big challenge. I hope that you'll encourage not just the people that are on today, but all of the researchers that you know. This is an area that can't wait. We need to do it and do it now. Thanks very much for listening. If you've any questions, I'd be delighted to take them. But I think actually the explanation in Strand 12 of what the IRC's new foundation is excellent. So, but I'm happy to take them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tina. I think it's a very thought-provoking topic and presentation. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, and there's just a comment. Thank you, Tina. Very interesting work plans there. And we can just wait a minute to see if there's any other questions, but no, I think that's it. So we can move on next. The next presentation will be given by Jennifer Kelly and Lorraine Tansey from the Department of Rural and Community Development, and they will present on Strand 11, the Volunteering Strategy New Foundations Award. So Lorraine is there, great. And
thanks, Brenda and Anna, and thank you for bringing up my presentation while I just express Jennifer's apologies from the department. And my name is Lorraine, as Brenda says, and I'm here today as chair of the National Strategy for Volunteering Research Working Group, and we're very excited, and again thanks to the IRC for supporting us. This is our first New Foundations partnership, so we're really excited about it, and it's very hard to follow Tina, absolutely incredible words and work, and I suppose I'm very heartened today to see all of the community-based methodologies that are being embraced. So I think we're in the right space, which is exciting. Do contact me at lorraine.tansey@nygoy.ie if you have any questions. And really, we're excited to announce Strand 11, and there will be 4 awards on this strand of 12-month duration. So in terms of what these 4 awards are, we'll go on to our next slide, where we've really highlighted, I suppose, 3 key actions of the national strategy. So if, like me, you love a little bit of bedtime reading, and reading the national strategy is something you enjoy, you'll see that volunteering has really, I suppose, been an exciting and important part of all our communities, particularly in recent times. So a national strategy has really been vital to supporting volunteering and ensuring its continued thriving in our communities. So we just pulled out 3 specific actions, and from them we have 4 projects identified. The strategy document itself is a very excellent resource for the research, so we encourage applicants to go back to the strategy and see the extent of the work that was again, a community-based methodology to create. So the strategy itself points to a number of resources that will support applicants for the 4 projects. We've both qualitative, quantitative and mixed method approaches and opportunities, so we're excited to see what can emerge from these particular actions. So we'll dive into the first one on our next slide, and it's Action 18 and engaging young people. So within the national strategy, we have identified that young people indicate that they would like to be able to volunteer, but they don't know where or how to engage, that they're experiencing barriers to being involved in their communities. And that can range between volunteer involving organisations having real challenges like Garda vetting, as well as insurance and other barriers that might prevent engaging young people. But also they might have a challenge around designing those opportunities that are quite meaningful for young people. And so with Action 18, we're excited to have a community-based approach to creating and involving with young people and volunteer involving organisations a toolkit which will enable greater youth engagement across Ireland in volunteering. As we know, this sector needs an injection of young volunteers, and so being part of this creation of this toolkit is an important resource for the sector. In the strategy, a number of collaborators are specifically named: the National Youth Council of Ireland, Campus Engage's studentvolunteer.ie, Feroiga, and there will be other supporters as well and stakeholders that can assist, including Young Social Innovators, the Goshka Award, and so on. So yes, I think there'll be quite a good bit of support from youth engagement organisations for this particular Action 18 on Strand. Now, our next area of focus within Strand 11 is the National Strategy's Action 18 around economic and social value of volunteering. And I suppose within the National Strategy, the Indicon reports refer to the economic value of volunteering in a very particular way. So it's narrowly defined around those that would fall underneath the charities regulator, for example. So we would like this to be a broadening of that conversation. So things like non-formal or informal volunteering as well being recognised as having economic and social value. And so Action 18 has been identified in the National Strategy as an opportunity for the New Foundations grant. And the final piece is looking at, on the next slide, our demographics of volunteering. So when we look at Action 8, apologies, the increased evidence of demographic breakdown of volunteers, we have identified that we have a wide range of data sources in the sector. So for example, Volunteer Ireland have a national database called IVOL, where individuals can come forward and volunteer. However, with all of these various data sources, we'd like to do more of a macro look at how our profile in terms of age, gender, socioeconomic breakdown of participants in volunteering looks nationally. So that would involve looking at various data sources and really how robust they are and future recommendations for those data sets. And the second part of our understanding of the demographics of who volunteers is, of course, looking at our census question, which was new this year. Hopefully everyone filled in their census and you will have seen the question in relation to volunteering. But again, broadening out that question in terms of looking at not just formal volunteering in a charity context, but non-formal and informal volunteering. But those are our 3 actions within the strategy that we're excited about as part of Strand 11. So moving on to our last slide there, I think I've just highlighted, I suppose, that within Action 18 and 48, we're looking at the reports and resources that are within the national strategy. So Feroiga, for example, participated in a series of focus groups, and that data is within the strategy, and that's going to be a good source for the research as well. And these are both qualitative and quantitative opportunities. So in our final slide, I think I have, thanks Anna, my details again, and people can ask any questions they have in relation to it. Just have a quick look at my notes here. I suppose the outputs are high-level reports for the 3 identified actions for projects, and progress reports within that 12-month are detailed as well in the call document. So thank you, Brenda and Anna.
Thanks so much for that, Lorraine. That was really informative, and I'm sure it's been very useful for our participants. Let me just check the Q&A. There's a thank you for you, Lorraine. So yeah, again, if any other questions come in, please just email them through to us and we can try to answer them in the next day or 2. So yeah, we're a little bit ahead of time, but I think we'll move ahead and then we can steal back a few minutes at the end of the webinar. So the last presentation this morning will be given by Dave Kenny. David works in the policy unit in Irish Aid, and he will give us a brief presentation on both Strand 4 and Strand 4B. So David, if you're ready to go, let me know.
Sure, yeah, I can go now. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, great, excellent. It's always a roulette on audio for us here in the department. and thanks very much, Brenda. So I'll go ahead if that's all right.
Yeah, perfect.
I think we have slides there as well. So great to see everybody here this morning. As Brenda said, I'm working in Policy Unit in Irish Aid here in the Department of Foreign Affairs, and I currently manage our research partnerships. So I wanted to come in today and just give a brief bit of maybe context setting for those of you who might not be familiar with development and our work. We've been partnering with IRC for a few years now on new foundations and our Coalesce Awards, and we're also launching a new strand for new foundations this year, which is Education for Global Citizenship and Sustainable Development. So their awards, I'm sure people have seen this, either of 9 months or 12 months duration, depending on which of the strands, up to €10,000 each. So if we could move on to the next slide there, I will just introduce Ireland's Policy for International Development, A Better World, which launched in 2018 and underpins all of our work. Really, it's formed around a certain number of policy priorities and intervention areas, which I'm going to come back on later because they give a good insight into the sort of projects we like to fund. And it's all framed under reaching the furthest behind first in all the work we do. So addressing the challenges that, you know, the most vulnerable people around the globe, whether they're suffering the effects of climate change, gender inequality, access to education. We want to go where it is most serious and address that first. So if we move on to the next slide, and I'll just leave that up at the minute, I might just talk briefly about research in our policy. So we've had research cutting through our work for many, many years, but as part of A Better World, one of the sections there is how we in Irish Aid are going to do things differently, and one of those is with research. The first thing we do, or did rather, was frame our research agenda around our policy priorities. It is central to what we do, and we feel that, you know, without effective research, learning and knowledge management, we could be doing anything. We don't know what our effect or our impact is, and research also allows us to innovate in our partner countries and in our work around the world. So the policy priorities that I mentioned on the last slide and that I said I will come back to, that's what underpins all our research work, and we aim to have everything that we fund addressing those in some way. Now, there's a huge amount of scope, as you'll see, for what counts as falling under one of our priorities, but I will return to that. And we had a few other major things we wanted to do as part of research, one of which was to collaborate with public and private organisations in Ireland, and partnership with IRC was one of the listed ones there as well. And while it doesn't directly apply to new foundations, we strongly believe in supporting challenge-based research. And certainly for the A Better World strand in new foundations, we certainly see that as a pipeline to the larger Coalesce partnership with IRC as well. So, and Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have people who have gotten the new foundations grants and then will go on to join again for the larger research projects with us. So we find it really useful for that. And then I suppose our main big thing and where development really comes into it is about building networks between Irish and international researchers. So what we want is for all of our research at the minute, it all has to have a north-south component to it. So our large partnerships are about teams who have members in Ireland and members in one of our key partner countries. What we want is, given the challenges that we see in development now, and the first one that comes to mind for everybody is climate change. There is a traditional view in development that, you know, we in the north or we in the west in the developed world have to go out and disseminate all our research and technology and findings. But if you look at something like climate change, some of the global experts in adaptation and mitigation are the people in developing countries who are day-to-day dealing with them, have been for a number of years. So it's important for us that these networks we build have bilateral flows of expertise, knowledge, information, and you know, outputs and outcomes from research as well. And we have started to see some really effective kind of delivery there, and networks that are maintaining after the awards are done. So that's the big priority to us. And finally, all of that we hope to use to improve how we address the Sustainable Development Goals, both here in Ireland and in our work with partner countries overseas. So if we could have the next slide there, I'll just touch a bit more on the collaboration and networking. So as part of these north-south linkages between Irish researchers and colleagues overseas, we have some main areas of focus. So promoting research consortia led by Irish institutions with international partners, including, and that really should be especially developing countries, because we're not in a position to support research in a country that's not eligible for ODA or official development assistance, just in case anyone on the call isn't aware. Strengthen transnational collaborative research capacity. Again, that's really what underpins this, is building these networks and building these linkages. And you will find quite often for these that our mission network is a source of great value. Often we'll put researchers directly in contact with someone in our mission who may have contacts in ministries of education or innovation or health or whatever sort of sector your research is in. Strengthen the capacity of research institutions and networks in developing countries. Again, very important to us, to rather than go and deliver, to help strengthen and build capacity and allow that work to be carried on independently in our partner countries. And then encourage an exchange of expertise, knowledge and capacity between North and South. And as I said, it's very important to us that that is bi-directional. We've recently had a number of calls that talk about the need to decolonialize research and to ensure that ownership is living in developing countries. So again, that's a significant part of our work here and our aims with our research funding. So we'll move on to the next slide, which is just the last on this first strand. And this is from our policy for international development. These are, in the outer ring, are 4 policy priorities: to reduce humanitarian needs, to address climate action and gender equality, to strengthen governance. And we'll do that mainly through 3 intervention areas: in people, which covers health, education, social protection; food, which is nutrition, agriculture; and then protection, which looks at governance, gender, and areas like that. It's all sits under the furthest behind first approach, where we aim to address the challenges facing the most vulnerable around the globe, and again achieved through building capacity, through effective coordination, policy influence, research and learning, where we're talking about today, and public engagement. So it's a nice graphic with a lot going on, but that just gives you a sense of the areas that we work in. And I see a quick question there. I might come back to it at the end. I'd say maybe Brenda's that probably the best. Grand.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
So that is the first part, strand 4. So we are not too prescriptive on what a research thing that we'd support would be. You know, now obviously IRC and the experts in research have criteria there, but you know, if something on climate action, you know, is addressing a specific crop in a specific location, we're not going to say no on that it's not really climate related. These, as with all good science and research, I suppose, are not discrete and boxed off areas of focus for us. And indeed, it's impossible, I think, nowadays to address anything without considering climate action. And we like to have things like gender mainstreamed throughout everything we do as well. So it's a very broad basket of what we like to address. So I might move on to the next slide there now, and this is for strand 4B, which is brand new this year. And I don't know as much about this, which will be frightening to you all, seeing how little I knew about the last piece. But my colleague Anya, who leads on this, wasn't able to be here today. But we in Irish Aid have launched a new citizenship education strategy at the end of last year. And this is what we define global citizenship education for our purposes is a lifelong process where we want to increase public awareness about development issues, about the world we live in, its changing inequalities, the effects of climate change. And it's actually a really interesting strategy to read. So we look at education as being both formal, non-formal and informal. And again, we're happy to support any of those under this strand as well. And I might just ask for the next slide there again. As part of this, we are in collaboration with the Department of Education. So we also include education for sustainable development. I couldn't tell you right now what the difference between education for sustainable development and global citizenship education is, but there is a strong, heavy overlap with them. And the strategy, which the picture was on the previous page there, and I should have put a link, but I'm happy to send it around later. It's available on the Irish Aid website. So the strategy outlines where these synergies between global citizenship education and education for sustainable development lie. And what we would ask is that applicants would be familiar with the strategy, have a read through it. I found it really interesting. There's actually some great findings from research that we carried out about how engaged the Irish public is, and how many of them can kind of give examples of development work and how aware they are of programs, challenges, the SDGs, etc. So it's actually quite a useful framing mechanism for anyone who's applying and who might be interested in this field. And the next slide then, please. So applicants should be familiar with both the strategy, but also the code of good practice in development education. And this is embedded into the strategy and kind of central to what we aim to do over the next number of years with this piece of work. We are particularly interested in sort of new partnerships. So obviously we welcome practitioners in education and academia and any collaborations there. But engagement with new sectors, and we're thinking, you know, maybe mixes of public and private and that kind of thing as well, would be particularly interesting to the team in our global citizenship education section here. It is also the first year that we're running this call, so we would be grateful for kind of, you know, questions, feedback, etc. to come in that might help us in refining it for future years. So that's everything on that part. And I have one last slide, which is just the sustainable development goals laid out nice and neatly there to start triggering some ideas and just invite any questions. And I see that there's one or two come in. So shall I just read those out, Brenda, or do you want to parse them? Or?
Yes, please. As you wish. That there's one question about the research team, which it might be more process oriented, but I'll read it out if you want, and then we can decide which of us answers. So me and my collaborator in a foreign university are both from the STEM domain. We would like to include a collaborator from AHSS, as the proposal has a social aspect to it. I have reached out to a couple of researchers in AHSS, but we haven't got confirmation yet. So is it possible to grow the network and include team members at a later stage if we are successful in our application, or is it mandatory to include these team members before making the application in the Strand?
That may be one more for yourself.
I think it is more, yeah, it's more pro. So I think generally speaking, the staff can be recruited to the research team after the award has been won, which can be done through public advertising. So I think that's what the question is asking, that, you know, you do have the opportunity to bring on team members afterwards as opposed to at the application stage. But if I've misunderstood that, please do let me know. I'll just check and see if there's any other questions. There's a question in relation to Strand 1, which I will go back and check with my manager and fold that into the FAQ. So I'll post a new version of the FAQ based on the questions that have come in today. We should do that tomorrow by close of business. And I think there's a question for Strand 11. So David, I think you're off the hook for now. Hey. So thank you very much for that, David. That was really useful as well. So that brings us to the end of our presentations. Thank you very much again to all of our presenters today for taking the time to brief us on their strands and for their investment in this scheme. And thank you for joining us and for your interest in the scheme as well. So any of the information that you heard this morning about the strands, it's contained on the IRC website. And in particular, you can consult the call document on the New Foundations page. And a copy of this morning's webinar will be circulated to the participants as well. So although the New Foundations Awards are relatively small in monetary terms and in terms of the length of the awards, the impacts can be quite far-reaching, and it has been really impressive to see what awardees have been capable of achieving with these awards over the years. For example, we've seen that it enables exposure to experts in the field through workshops, conferences and online webinars, and it has helped establish Ireland as a European hub. It's increased international recognition and competitiveness in the field. And of course, it's going some way towards establishing the awardee as a future international leader and expert based in Ireland and subsequently escalating their career. The awards also provide long-term impact opportunities. As you heard, the new knowledge generated can be disseminated through high impact publications, and it can often lead to collaborative research projects, applications, for example, through Coalesce. As David had mentioned, a number of awardees under Strand 4 have successfully been awarded a larger Coalesce programme, and at times as well it can lead on to future ERC applications. So we'll wrap up here. If you have any further questions, you can, as I mentioned, you can email newfoundations@research.ie. We hope you found this webinar informative, and thank you again for joining us for this morning.